We've reflected on spirituality as living joyfully with awe and wonder our lives. We then reflected on the meaning of Christian spirituality as putting on love, living the Beatitudes, following Jesus. We then reflected on the 4 essentials, non-negotiables of Catholic spirituality: personal prayer and personal morality, social justice, the importance of a mellow heart and spirit, and belonging to the church, the community of worship. In our last reflection, we reflected on the spirituality of the laity, the call to be in the world as disciples of Jesus, true salt of the earth, light to the world. Today I wish to reflect on one special group of the laity and their call to follow Jesus and live their spirituality: the single life. There are many lay people today who follow Jesus as single people. That is, they choose not to be married or not to be amongst the clergy or religious life. Instead, they live as single people, following Jesus. There are many who come under this vocation of the single life. Some are single for a period of time until they eventually get married or join the priesthood or the religious life. It's for a short period of time. Others decide eventually that they are called to the single life when they looked to get married but did not, or they looked to join the clergy or the religious but did not, and so they chose to be single. There are others who decide straight away they are called to the single way of life. And then there are others who were married and have lost their spouses. Their children are settled and they now are living the single life. There are still others who were married, but tragically their marriages didn't work for whatever reason. They chose not to get married again, and they chose to be single. Some might even have their children with them, and they are single parents. All of these come together to discern their vocation to live and follow Jesus in the single life. I would like to make one point very clear. In fact, I wish to state categorically that the call to follow Jesus as a single person in the single life is a vocation. It is a gift from God through the Holy Spirit with His grace in the heart of that single person who is following Jesus, not through marriage and not through religious life or the priesthood, but as a single person. This is a vocation and has all the dignity that every vocation in the church has. We have to keep this in mind. It's not for us to judge why the person has chosen to be single. That is a grace. That is a gift. That is the vocation itself that comes from God in and through the maze of our own personal life. Having said that, there are 3 aspects of the spirituality of the laity I want to emphasize as the spirituality of the single life. The first, single people do amazing, wonderful, special work for and in the church. Because a single person is not committed to a spouse and with obligations of children, because a single person is not part of a religious community or has obligations of the priesthood, the single person is free. Free to spend more time in prayer, in study, in understanding theology, and very often they offer their service in the church for different church activities, different ministries in the church. Cantors, Eucharistic ministers, heads of social organizations of the church, part and parcel of the small Christian communities and leadership roles, a variety of ministries in the church. And they continue to do wonderful work as lay people in and for the church. The second, single people as lay people live their spirituality in the world. Theirs is a secular spirituality. And so, many of them have different types of jobs. They could be in the teaching profession, in the medical profession. They could be administrators in the engineering trade. They could be in service industry. They could be in hospitality industry. In and through their work, they radiate Christ. By living honest lives, dedicated lives, sincere, hard-working lives, they manifest Christ. They show Christ and His values. They become the presence of Jesus in the world, which is so necessary. I'll give you one example of a lady I know who is single, a brilliant lawyer, but now after practicing law for quite a few years has decided that she will only choose cases where she will be able to defend the causes of justice, human rights, dignity, protection of the environment and creation. So through her work, she is becoming the presence of Jesus in a dedicated manner, living the gospel, salt of the earth, light of the world. The third, as lay persons, single people participate in the mission of the church to the world. We call this new evangelization. That is, they proclaim Jesus, not necessarily through their words, but through their very life. I think of the many single people who have chosen to be single, and so they take the responsibility to care for their aging parents, letting their other siblings look after their families. Or other single people I know who've chosen to be single so that they care for their special needs brother or sister, and spend their life in serving and caring without marriage or without being a religious. Or others I know who, despite their own profession and job, choose to be part of different organizations, NGOs, organizations that work for the betterment of society, for the integrity of creation, for the care of human rights and human dignity, organizations in the political sphere, in the economic sphere, in the social sphere that help transform our society. Then there are other single people who choose to do something more. They associate themselves with a religious congregation, not by taking vows, but by accompanying that religious congregation. So, for example, the members of the third order of the Franciscans, they are lay people who journey with the Franciscans, or the cooperators of the Salesians, or the lay Redemptorists, or lay associates of the Redemptorists, who assist us, work with us for a short period, for a longer period, in the mission of proclaiming good news to all. This is new evangelization. This is the way single people offer their lives to the proclamation of the gospel in bringing Jesus to people. Having said that, I'd like to make 2 points very clear. The first, I address myself now to bishops, priests, clergy, religious, and married people. It is a tragic reality that very often we in the clergy and religious life and married people look at people who've chosen the single way of life with a very biased, negative, prejudiced perspective. Our language at times, the derogatory comments we make, hurt. We fail to realize that the call to the single way of life is a vocation from God. It is special. It is not for me or for us to judge why a person has chosen the single way of life. That is his or her unique response to the call of God prompted by the Spirit. Ours must be the role to support, to encourage, to enhance, to appreciate, to assist in whatever way we can the single person in his or her own following of Jesus as Jesus' disciple. So that's the first point I want to make. The second, I want to address myself to you. All of you wonderful people who have chosen to be single in the church. This is not an easy calling. It's a challenging calling. To be single today and live committed to Jesus is not easy. You will have to face prejudice, misunderstandings, harsh comments, ridicule at times, both at your workplace or even in the church community. What do you do? My first recommendation is turn to Jesus. Turn to Jesus because Jesus is the answer. He is your model. He is your example. He is your treasure. As a matter of fact, He is your model because Jesus was single. Jesus never married. Jesus was not a religious. He never lived in a monastery in a religious community. He could have, but he didn't. There were a monastic community outside Jerusalem called the Essenes. But no, he was in the world, proclaiming the will of the Father. He also was not part of the Jewish priesthood, the Levites. He did establish the priesthood at the Last Supper. He did become the supreme priest on the cross, priest and victim. But in his life unto the Last Supper and the cross, he was single, doing the will of his Father in the midst of his world. Truly salt to the earth and light of the world. And so he says, if they persecuted me, they will persecute you too. John chapter 16. Take the 8th beatitude. Take it to heart. That Jesus says, blessed are those who are persecuted for the cause of right. Theirs is the kingdom of heaven. And so in moments of misunderstanding, harshness and hurt, find the strength and grace through the Spirit of Jesus. Another problem you will face is a human problem. Loneliness, the longing for companionship, being close to one's own family, which very often might not be there. And so again, in moments of loneliness, in moments of the longing for companionship, the first is a human suggestion. Channelize your energies into something creative, your talents, your likes, your hobbies. Put your best into that, and that will energize you. The second solution is spiritual. Turn to Jesus. Jesus again is the answer. Through the sacraments which you frequent, especially reconciliation and above all the Eucharist, you find strength from Jesus, who is the way, the truth, and the life for you. In your prayer, in the adoration for the Blessed Sacrament, Jesus is your courage. And so, my dear lay people who have chosen the single way of life, I want to say this to you. I want to say thank you. Many of you I know personally. Thank you because your way of following Jesus in a difficult world, in challenging times, yet committed to the Lord, committed to His church, is an inspiration for me. My own religious life and my own priestly commitment draws its strength through your witness of life. Thank you for living your vocation as single people in our church and world today. Married people, hold on a bit. Our next reflection, I will reflect on the spirituality of a married couple. But as I always do, I end this reflection with a question. And my question is to all of you wonderful single people who have chosen to follow Jesus through the single way of life. Are you living joyfully. Your call, your vocation, to be a single person, following Jesus, and so becoming light to the world, salt of the earth, the leaven in the door of the world, transforming our world into a better place.